thank you all for coming today. And yes, for those who it's your first SWIP report or second SWIP report, hopefully this will be really useful. So my name is Alyssa Eichler, part of the materials management section at the solid waste program here at Vermont DEC. Okay, so my first tip, and this might be something you already do, but again, if you're new to this, maybe not. But when you log into ReTRAC for pulling up your new report, I highly recommend you actually pull up two windows so that you can have the previous year's already completed and verified report and your new report. And this is because there are several sections that you might just be able to pull what you did or what somebody else did in the previous year forward to your new report, or at least you'll have something to compare and copy and paste pieces. The couple of pieces mainly that really are sort of like a do once and then just use the same paragraph each year are variable rate pricing, because most likely, this requirement has been in place for a long time, so very likely nothing has changed. And then also the leaf yard and clean wood recycling collection locations, unless those locations have changed, that can also just be carried forward. And then there's a lot of these SWIP report requirements that are just things that you posted to the website probably years ago, and update is needed, of course, but for the SWIP report, it's just a matter of sort of pulling those web pages forward. And then, yes, the real substance of the SWIP report is descriptions of your annual activities, like the school and business outreach, of course, is like the real big one. Also, waste reduction at events, food rescue, the asphalt, shingle, drywall, recycling options. But even for these, your outreach, what you do might be a little bit different, but maybe there's some similarities with the previous year, or at least you want to see how you described it the previous year. So I still think that having the previous verified report and the new blank report together just might be really helpful. So now I'm going to go through the whole report in the order that it's listed in your SWIP and also in ReTRAC. So it starts, of course, with just the general info, so your population of your SWME area, the number of households in the SWME area. Probably this hasn't changed, and you can just pull it forward, as well as the number of drop-off, center, and transfer stations in your region. The next piece in ReTRAC is the disposal rate, and this is only required in years 1 and 5, but you are probably calculating it for your own purposes every year, and you're welcome to share it in your report in years 2 through 4 if you want. So it's a per capita disposal rate, so pounds per person per day, and then just select the method that you use to calculate the rate. But again, only required in years 1 and 5. So year 2022 is year 2. Conveniently matches year 2021 was year 1, etc. So last year was year 2. So for those of you who have done the SWIP reporting for a while, you may remember that diversion rate used to be a required field. So it used to be in ReTRAC. It is no longer required. So we, again, recommend that you do calculate diversion rate just so that you can be keeping track of all of the amazing initiatives that you have for keeping materials out of the landfill, but there's nowhere to report it in ReTRAC. So you're not missing it. It's just not a requirement. So the next requirement is posting your SWIP on your website and also posting your A to Z recycling guide on the website. So the SWIP should have been posted, years ago when the plan was approved, and the A to Z requirement has been there for quite a while as well. And basically the requirements that we have around the A to Z guide are all about sort of convenience for the public. So we require that your guide be posted to your website within 2 clicks of the main page. And that's really just so that a person can come to your page, and if they've never been there before, that they should be able to navigate to your A to Z guide and get the answers that they're looking for. And so this is just a little snip of our list of minimum requirements. It's posted on our planning page. Again, most likely you've already made sure your A to Z guide is up to date. There's more than 13 requirements. There's, like I said, this is just a partial snip of the guide. But the reason why we put this together was we just wanted people in all of Vermont to be able to have the same information, so that if they want to know about fluorescent bulbs or aluminum cans, that those keywords will be present on the A to Z guide. Exactly how you implement your A to Z guide is up to you. So like maybe you want to have a separate entry for aluminum cans, or maybe you just want to have everything in the recyclable section. And so aluminum cans says see recycling. Like either of those are fine as long as all of these keywords are present on your A to Z guide. And of course, this should be updated regularly. I know it's so easy to have website updates sort of slip through the cracks. So your SWIP report is kind of a good reminder to like just go back through these key pieces of your website and make sure that they have been updated and that everything is accurate. And then all we're looking for in the report is the link. So the next piece is the variable rate pricing and haulers. So like I said at the beginning, this paragraph is really one that you don't need to rewrite every year. You really should just be able to copy and paste what you had before, unless something has changed. But if it hasn't, it's good enough the previous year, it's great again. And for your haulers, it's just, again, the website link to your hauler contact list. Again, this is just a really great one to check over really quickly and make sure that it's up to date, but most likely you're updating it in real time if anything changes. So now the big ones, the school outreach and the business outreach. So they're very similar, but with just a couple of slight differences. So for each, we're first asking for the number of schools and businesses in your region. So yes, you probably know exactly how many schools you have. And if you're part of like a big district, you might have no idea exactly how many businesses just because they pop up and they go out of business and it's really impossible to keep track of, which is fine. Like an estimate for your businesses, if that's all that you can have, that's completely fine. And then we're looking for the number contacted. And so here it's the number that you contacted with all of the requirements met. So like maybe you also contacted a whole bunch on just one topic. That's great, but we're not looking for that number here. We're just looking for the number that you did outreach to, like complete outreach to. And so what complete means is different numbers for schools and businesses. So for schools, the annual outreach is to 10% of the schools in your region or 2 schools, whichever is greater, with the expectation that at least 50% will be reached within the SWIP term, so within those 5 years. And if you are a small region or an independent town and you have fewer than 10 schools, then the expectation is to work with 2 schools per year. Or 1 if that's all you have. So yes, this means that maybe you're revisiting the same 1 or 2 schools every year, but this isn't really a redundancy. Just think of it as an opportunity to just really develop strong relationships and hopefully cultivate really successful programs. School outreach must be done in person, and it must cover all of these topics at every school. So this is discussing the items that are banned from disposal, recycling collection options, food scrap diversion, food waste reduction and donation options, hazardous waste management, and also all of the EPR programs. So electronics, paint, batteries, mercury bulbs, and thermostats. So again, you might have a subset of schools that you only do programs on food waste reduction, and that's it. And that's wonderful for your outreach, but it doesn't count toward your SWIP report requirements, if that makes sense. So the same for businesses, just really different totals. So for businesses, the requirement is 2% of the businesses in your region. So this is where an estimate is fine, but you want to have a general ballpark so that you can know what your target is, basically, or 20 businesses, whichever is greater, with the expectation of 10% being reached within the SWIP term. And so again, if you have fewer than 10 businesses, the expectation is that you reach out to all of them at least twice. If you have only 2 businesses, then yes, this is annual outreach. You're reaching out to them every year, developing strong relationships, cultivating strong, successful programs. Business outreach can be either in person or by the phone, whereas the school outreach, it was required to be in person. But we're really looking for these interactions, conversations with the entity. So in person is best, phone is okay. And again, every business or institution must cover all of these topics. So the disposal ban items, recycling, food scrap diversion, food waste reduction or donation, hazardous waste management, and then the EPR programs.
And if I could just chime in, that when we say cover, we don't expect any of you to be experts on hazardous waste or on the specifics of EPR programs and things like that. We have all those materials that we can share with you. And basically, you know, for those types of things, we'd love for you to offer up our name and make the connection. Oh, there are folks in the hazardous waste program who can help you with managing that waste. Here's the contact information. Here's the brochure on the free EPR programs if you're not aware of those, or those kinds of things. I just wanted to just mention that.
Yeah, no, thanks for that clarification, Mia. You're completely right. Yeah, we're not expecting you to have like a full day workshop or something like comprehensively talking about all these topics, but it's more like reminding them that these are areas that they need to be thinking about and that resources exist. You might be the resource, you might be able to point them to the resource. But yeah, that really is the level of the expectation. And then the last required piece for the school and business outreach is to have a tracking spreadsheet. And we have this template available on our planning page of our website, but you're also more than welcome to use your own version if you prefer. There are just really 4 required fields that we expect you to include. So pretty self-explanatory, really. The name of the school or the business, the date that you visited or had the phone call interaction, the status of recycling and food scrap diversion at the time of your interaction, or like if they weren't recycling, but then later they are, then yes, absolutely document that change in compliance. And a summary of the interaction. And it can be just really brief. It could be gave a food scrap workshop and a bunch of handouts, or just pointed them to the resources on all of the topics, or just a brief summary. And we're not using your tracking spreadsheets to like document the status of businesses and schools, you know, recycling, composting rates like throughout the Vermont. Like that's not how we use these. These really are just a way for us to see that you are doing the required outreach, that you're keeping on top of it. Yes, that it's outreach for compliance, so that you are looking for the status of recycling and food scrap diversion, but we aren't like using this and then targeting entities that like weren't in compliance. Like that's not how we use this document at all. So there's also a text box in ReTRAC where you can just describe what you did. So is this text box a version of the spreadsheet? Yes, it kind of is. But this is also just the opportunity for you to just summarize. It could be a bulleted list. It could be a couple of sentences. If you did do some like recycling workshops at other schools, like this would be the place to talk about that. Again, those don't go toward the minimum number, but it's still important outreach that maybe you did, and you can highlight it here. And then there's lastly that little check box just to verify that you did indeed talk about all of the required materials at each of these entities. So the next category is waste reduction at events. And so here we're looking for you to provide a link to your webpage that talks about whatever technical assistance you provide, and then a summary. So the requirement is that you offer technical assistance at a minimum. So maybe you also offer posters or bins or whole zero waste kits. That's amazing if you do. Technical assistance like connecting people with haulers, for example, like that's the minimum requirement. So, and similarly, there's no like requirement that you must provide assistance for like a certain number of events. So maybe no one approached you and your answer is you didn't help out any events. Like that's fine as far as the reporting requirement goes. But if you did help out with events, then this is where we want to hear about it. What were the events? What did you do? What assistance did you give? As far as the SWIP report goes, the HHW collection sections are actually quite brief, and this is because you already had to fill out an entire HHW report in ReTRAC. So we didn't want to just make them be completely redundant. So really it's just sort of a series of check boxes. So first you're checking to confirm that your minimum requirements were met and then how they were met. So this is, you know, I did the minimum or maybe more than the minimum, but you're like, I did events, I have a facility, I did events and I have a facility, whatever the case may be. And then you're confirming that you did indeed complete the ReTRAC report on HHW. There is a place to give your baseline participation rate at your events or facility, and this is optional. And then a place to put the website link to your A to Z guide where you have collection information on all of these landfill banned and dangerous materials. Again, those are all in our A to Z guide, like minimum requirement document. The next category is food rescue. And so the requirement here is that you have interactions with local food rescue organizations, such as a food shelf or a food bank, and maybe did some outreach with them. So here, just describe what you did during the previous year. And then again, include a link to webpage, could be your A to Z guide with food rescue or food donation information. The textile reuse and recycling is similar. The requirement is that you have at least one collection location in your region. But if you don't, then you must provide like an event, like a swap and drop type event. So first is a link to your webpage that has information on textile recycling, like your A to Z guide. And then the text box is really just in case you don't have a permanent location, then you can describe what other event you offer to meet this requirement. Leaf yard and clean wood is similar. It's just assuring that there's at least one location within your region for collecting leaf yard and clean wood. So just say what it is. Then finally, the tricky subject of asphalt, shingles, and drywall recycling. So the shingles requirement is currently on hold, but what the ReTRAC report is asking is to list if any collection for each of those materials is currently available in your region, and then if yes, where the material is being shipped to, so that's just if applicable. And then simply to describe efforts that you took during the previous year to contact drywall recyclers just to like find out about pricing. So this is just basically an annual phone call to like find out what the options are and describe any efforts toward establishing collection for these materials, namely especially drywall at the moment since the asphalt shingle requirement is on hold in your region. So it's not a requirement that you currently have collection for these materials in your region. The requirement is that you're working toward it and at least like learning more about it each year. And then you might remember that there was, or even in your SWIP, there currently is a residuals section, but this requirement is also currently on hold, mainly due to emerging contaminants like PFAS. And the requirement is that you collaborate with DEC residuals staff to hold a public meeting on residuals recycling once during the 5 years of the SWIP term. And that's it. So then the last section is there's places to upload files. You can upload a list of haulers in your region. You can upload a portfolio of outreach materials. The only required upload is your school and business outreach spreadsheet that we already talked about. And so this one, you must upload it in order to actually like save a completed report. Otherwise, it will be considered incomplete. It won't let you change the status to complete. And then you're done. So you can save your progress. You don't need to complete this all in one sitting. So there's a save button at the end. But then once you are finished, you do need to change the status from draft to complete. That will let us know that it is indeed a complete report. And then we will review the SWIP report and hopefully, you know, if you followed along perfectly with this training, everything will be great and we'll be able to change the status from complete to verified and send you your official letter for the year. If there's something that you need to go back and edit, we'll just change the status back to draft and let you know what you need to change and update. And then after you've made that change, then the report will hopefully be ready to be verified at that time.
To clarify one thing, the drywall, making a call about any changes in markets or anyone who's interested in drywall recycling, it's once during the SWIP term, so it's not even an annual requirement. You just got to do it once. And then the shingles requirement, it's, you know, it's not even just on hold, it's suspended for now. It may come back with the next MMP. We'll be talking to all of you about that.